So it's good to meet all of you. I don't want to use up our time to do introductions, so maybe when you ask the question, you can just introduce yourself, maybe what year you are, and would that be helpful?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really pleased that you guys are here. I think it'll be a good conversation. Mr. Sethi is going to join us from our IT department, so I can phone a friend if it gets a little technical. All right. So, hello, Mr. Sethi. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Good afternoon, almost evening. My name is Gautam Sethi. I manage the technology team at Fairfax County's public schools. So everything you use in schools, from the internet to the laptops, which I know you all love, is supplied and managed through our teams and all the other systems which go along with it.
All right. I think it's your first, Joseph.
All right. Hello, my name is Joseph Davich. I'm from Woodson High School. I'm a senior. Thank you for letting me come here. But I wanted to ask just one question on AI and just mostly about FCPS's usage of AI. FCPS has stated that they support AI, however, they have a very rigid guidelines as to how students and teachers can use AI. And I wanted to ask just a general question of what led you to the decision of letting AI into classrooms? Why are students allowed to use AI? Why are teachers allowed to use AI, even in these guidelines?
So I think one of the things that's important about AI is I had someone recently say it's a lot like electricity. It's just here, right? Like we cannot talk about it or not learn about it, but it's here. And it's being used in companies all over the globe, right? So I think in terms of our interest, we want to really try to figure out how to make sure that when we talk about AI, we stay really human-centered in that, and also that we're thoughtful about safety. For example, Finland starts working with preschool children with AI, teaching the difference between real and fake pictures, right, at a very young age, because they felt like it's a real safety issue. And for us here in the United States, Mr. Sethi and I have been talking, it feels like the adults need to process things a lot longer because we're not sure kids are ready to talk about it. And I think students are already using it, right? Like, so I sometimes think that the technology is moving faster than the policies are to address it. Does that make sense a little bit? So from our standpoint right now, our issue or how we've decided to approach AI is we have the partnership agreement with OpenAI for our educators to learn more about it. Because I'm going to expect, honestly, that you all around the table know more about how to use tools than I do, because I'm not using them as regularly. But I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that, Gautam.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about Fairfax beyond the classroom, we are a $4 billion company. We have 40,000 employees. And AI has promises in providing efficiencies at various layers of an organization. So this faster, cheaper, more efficient we can be in running operations, that also allows us to then be able to support classrooms better, because that could be resources diverted back into classroom programming. So there's those aspects, right? There is the instructional side of it, which we are discussing, and then there's the operational side of it. And all companies everywhere are focusing on how do we get operational efficiencies, if nothing else, out of the systems.
Yeah, it was our budgets. Last year we had this conversation around budget, and when the funding isn't as strong, we're going to have to find ways to do things to keep our resources supporting classrooms and theaters and music and athletics and that type of thing. So I think it's a real challenge to find that balance, I think. But yeah, thank you.
My name is Yvonne Foe. I'm from Westfield and I'm a senior. And my question is, as AI tools are more integrated into our education, how do you think that affects the development of our students when they have the AI doing skills for them that they should be learning?
So I think that's a great question, right? That's the big fear, is that somehow AI is going to do things for us rather than us learning to direct the AI, right? So I think we were just in a meeting today where we were talking about believing that we need to understand the tools so that the tools can make us better at the human tasks, right? Because I think our creative thinking, our problem solving, we need to learn how to use AI as a tool to improve our ability to be human. Does that make sense? I think if we don't want to cognitively offload our our thinking to AI. We want to be able to learn to manage it, shape it, and use it in ways that humans stay at the center of that and are the architect of that work. I don't think it is going to be helpful. The same thing happened, honestly, years ago when calculators came out, right? Everybody was like, oh my gosh, you can't use calculators because now no one's going to know their math.
And that was Google and Wikipedia. We had the same things. Google's here, nobody needs to learn anything now.
Oh, right, and Wikipedia, no one has to memorize anything. We can look everything up. So we've been down this road before, but I think the idea that we want to do with our education is teach students how to use those tools, and now it's AI, and then it's going to be quantum, and then it's going to be fill in the blank. We need to teach how to use those and stay human-centered in our use. Yeah, thanks. Good question. And I think that's why everybody's so afraid of it, right? It's going to take all our jobs. I think what we have to do is make sure that to be able to get jobs in the future, we have to know how to harness the tools and use them the human-centered way. Yeah.
Thank you. My name is Giselle Tedla. I'm a junior from West Springfield High School. And now that FCPS has joined the ChatGPT for Teachers National Pilot Program, what oversights, if any, will be in place to ensure that this isn't unethically used by teachers to grade assignments?
That's a great question. We have a really robust data privacy agreement and some really clear guardrails for staff use. So I think that, learning those tools, and again, the partnership allows us to have access at no cost, which was also really important. I think learning more about those tools is important, but the ethical use and human-centered use is critical, right? Maybe you can talk about some of the more specific guardrails. I mean, professional development is one, right? We trained all of our school-based technology people, our SBITs and our T-SPECs, our technology folks. Staff are going through hours of training on how best to use the tools. So I think with training, awareness, and data privacy security agreements, I think we're really putting a lot of guardrails in place to use these tools safely and to learn about them. Because I think we may find we don't want to use some of the tools, right? But we need to understand them well enough before we make those decisions.
Okay, so seeing as AI can be used by anyone these days, how is FCPS going to address instances of plagiarism or cheating through AI done by students?
It's Josephine, right?
Yes, sorry,
Wolverine?
Josephine from Westbow.
So there was a study, and I can't name the study people at this point, but the study was done that said before AI, there was data that indicated by self-reporting, 70% of students reported having cheated at some time. And after AI, which I thought was high, honestly, 70%, but maybe not. And after AI, what would you guess the percentage was?
70%.
70%, it's exactly right, Josephine. So I think we were I think cheaters cheat. Cheaters could cheat by taking information off of Wikipedia and copying, pasting it. People can, you guys know there are 1,000 ways to cheat. I think AI is a different way to cheat, but I don't think it has opened the floodgates to cheating. I think that exists. And I also think, and maybe you would not agree, but I think sometimes we evaluate tools by the harm that can happen instead of the good that could arise, right? Because there are many students who've shown me I can take all of my notes, put them in a notebook LM, create quizzes for myself so I can be ready. It can organize, it can ask questions for me. I can refine a presentation. Those are all really productive uses for AI. And so we have to balance what are all the possible productive uses with the possible negative uses, because I think we're always going to find a negative use. Does that make sense? And so part of education is to say, here are the ways that things can be done positively versus, and here are the costs if they're not. But I think it's fundamentally the question we wrestle with.
And that's our journey sort of in education, right? So as an education institution, certainly you all are getting the education in the classrooms, but you have to imagine teachers are learning this too. So it's new to them. This didn't exist. They didn't go to teaching school and learn how to use AI. They learned good teaching practices, but applying that with AI is a learning experience that everybody has to go through. Having tools available starts that journey, but it is a journey. It doesn't happen overnight. They're going to learn how to use it. They will see what works and what doesn't work, and along the way we are doing professional development. We are working with the board on a policy. All of that is going to shape what the future looks like and is yet to emerge. I don't think we are at a conclusion yet.
Yeah, I think one of the things to remember is right now in our nation, 65% of children in classes kindergarten through 12th grade are preparing for a career that doesn't exist today. So when we think about that, that's a powerful data point, right? Like, I want to be a fill in the blank. That career may look very different by the time they graduate and are ready to leave school. So we have to rethink, how are the school experiences we provide you going to prepare you to be the person you want to be and achieve your hopes and dreams when you leave us here in Fairfax County. So, yeah. So thank you.
Hi, thank you. My name's Smita. I'm from TJ. I'm a senior. And my question is that now that Fairfax is allowing AI to be integrated into the classroom, as AI grows and becomes more intelligent, how do you anticipate you're going to adjust the threshold of what AI is allowed in the classroom?
So I know that we have a couple board members that are bringing a topic to have a committee of faculty, maybe parents, the community. I think student voice should also be part of that. I think right now we're in a place that we have to stay with this topic and continue to walk alongside its growth so that we can shape those decisions. I think that as teachers or educators learn more about it, as higher education, like colleges now, a lot of them, you have to sign an agreement on how to use AI for classes. Some of you are nodding, you know that you have older siblings or friends, or you're in dual enrollment courses. And that's just how it's working right now. And I think as that becomes more normalized, then we're going to have to make sure that we stay on top of that, and to the degree we can, stay on the cutting edge of that. I think of learning happens at the very edge of our competence. It doesn't happen in safe places, right? It happens at that very edge. And that's where we are on this topic right now. So I think we're just going to have to stay with it. And what we think today may look very different than what we think even 6 months from now on this content area. Yeah, it's a great question.
Hello, I am Dalton, and as we are seeing AI grow in general, we can't really ban it in its entirety, and I'm wondering how we're going to make sure that students are going to be using it in a responsible manner and understand its dangers as such. AI has a tendency it is trained to appease humans, play into confirmation bias. How are we going to teach students of its dangers while also informing them of how it can be used in helpful ways?
So I think you're Dalton. I remember the first time I heard that AI doesn't always tell the truth, because I just assumed it did, right? But it doesn't. It hallucinates, and it's very sycophantish, right? It wants to please the person that's putting things in. So I think that, as with all things, we have to make sure that students understand the powers for good and the powers for not. And I think my hope would be that more often than not, we're going to want to use tools for good, if we can make the case about why that is. I think we're always going to struggle with that a little bit, Dalton, because particularly when we're young, we're very curious, and we're going to want to find out, does that really happen if I do this? Fill in the blank, whatever the issue is. If I drive 70 miles an hour on a wet road that's icy, is it possible I really will skid off the road and get in an accident? And some of these accidents we recover from, and some we don't, right? So hopefully in a classroom, when we're talking about AI, we can talk about, if you do these things, it's really dangerous, right? It can be life-changing in a negative way for somebody. But here are the things that could be used for good. And it goes back to the question earlier, I think that Josephine, maybe, or Giselle were asking about, we can't just look at the things that could go wrong and then never talk about it, because that would eliminate a lot of things we do, to be honest, right? We have to say, if we learn to use it responsibly, it's actually a good thing.
Thank you. My name is Elizabeth Allen, and we've talked a lot about how AI can be used as a tool. And similar to Dalton and Giselle and Josephine's questions, I'm wondering if you have any specific programs or courses in mind to make sure that students know how to use it as a tool and use it effectively as a tool, especially since it's always changing, and not just carelessly use it, because AI can be dangerous when not used correctly.
So I know that our instructional services department is working on coursework around AI literacy and AI pathways, and they're trying to incorporate some of the new frameworks that AI for Education has developed. And so I think those awareness courses are going to be important. And there's a difference between AI literacy, which is sort of using AI safely, kind of like we learn about being safe online or safe on the internet, and then how do you use the tool to enhance your human ability to lead, to learn, to invent, to innovate, to create? So I think that's the challenge, right? So I think that those courses they're looking at, and maybe something called a framework, an AI framework, where there'll be certain lessons that'll be included that are grade level appropriate about the safe and ethical use for AI, are things that the division is working on developing right now. But it's, in a very rudimentary way, we use a lot of technology to support theater productions right now, right? So miking systems, lighting systems, sound systems that continue to evolve. Well, if they are turned completely up and they can damage ears, they can, right? Like, you could use them dangerously, or they can really enhance a show. So I think when you think about AI, how do we use it responsibly and ethically to create better work, better outcomes for you, to enhance your ability to do what you need to do without it being dangerous, I think. So I think we're looking at those modules for literacy. Do you have suggestions?
No, I was just wondering if you had a plan going forward for these programs, and similar to like what we were talking about, I remember taking programs when I was in elementary school to know how to use Google Docs and Microsoft and everything. And I just think it would be important for students going forward, especially as you said, that a lot of the jobs that we're looking to going to might not even exist in the future, to adapt us for those jobs that will.
Yeah, I think for those of you who are kind of following the news, right, a lot of the entry-level jobs are going to be affected by AI, right? So that's really a big discussion right now in industry.
Hello, my name is Jordan Banks, and I'm an 11th grader at Robinson. And now knowing that FCPS is partnered with OpenAI, I was wondering if there will be any restrictions with AI usage in the upcoming years for FCPS faculty.
So I think that all of us as staff, all educators, all 40,000 of us, have to sign an acceptable use agreement, which confirms our agreement to use technology responsibly, whether it's technology on a tablet or a phone or, files and that type of thing. So that's not going to change. That exists today. I think that the OpenAI agreement, that enterprise agreement, actually brought all of our FCPS addresses and all of our staff into a safe data privacy restricted area. So it actually made our use of AI safer for our staff as we learn new skills. So I think that those acceptable use agreements and the technology agreements we have to sign are going to continue to evolve as the technology evolves.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name is Annie Chun from Oakton High School. I'm also a junior. And my question is, what do you think students can do to use AI responsibly while still developing their own voice and ideas?
I think that that's part of why we're providing these opportunities for our staff to learn more about it. Because theoretically, I mean, the idea about learning more would be have a trusted adult who knows more, right, that you would learn from. So I think that, we expect over the next few months our staff to learn more and know more about it. So I would really hope that our educators could become resources to students on questions they might have. Yeah, great question.
Hi, my name is Sadia. I'm come from Mountain View High School, so I'm junior. And my question is, how can we ensure that AI is tool our own learning?
And I could not hear you. You have to speak up just a little bit.
So how can we ensure that AI is tool our own learning?
Oh, that it's still your own learning and not AI? Well, at the end of the day, I think the human mind, right? Each of you have a creativity, a personal view on things, and you should never give that up to somebody else or something else, right? That is what makes you uniquely you. So I would expect that these tools are really to help hone your thinking, your perspective, but they're not to replace your thinking and not to replace your ability to critically problem solve or creatively think. And I would expect that, if anything, it may make you more curious, right? Because I think as we are able to synthesize information more rapidly, perhaps we're able to develop newer ideas in a more expeditious manner, maybe. I also think many students who are neurodivergent, for example, require some type of assistance sometimes, technical assistance. And one of the things we know with AI is it really helps with interpretation as well, language translation, taking written work and putting it into a visual model. So I really think it can be a tremendous asset for students to expand their thinking, but not trade for their thinking, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Claire DeRose. I'm a senior at Mount Vernon. And my question has kind of a combination to do with AI and being journalism and just like services or opportunities at schools. Mount Vernon is one of the smallest schools in our division, and like other schools, it's faced issues such as declining enrollment. So especially in schools like Mount Vernon, how does Fairfax ensure that students still have equal access to resources, including things like AI and including things like in journalism? Just some background, Mount Vernon doesn't have a set journalism class just due to low numbers. So overall, how does Fairfax ensure that students across the division, no matter where you live or what school you're at, have equal access to resources and opportunities?
We will be very blunt, have not done a fabulous job of that, Claire, right? Because it's not true. We don't have equal access. Around the table, there are probably schools that have classes for journalism, right? And then schools that don't, right? So that's clearly not equal access. We have schools that offer crew and schools that don't. We have schools, I mean, you can, so I think that's one of our big initiatives is to try to equalize that. In the sense that it shouldn't matter what neighborhood, if that's of interest, we want to try to provide it. So I think that that has been a challenge, to be honest with you. In thinking about AI, that was part of why our agreement with OpenAI is every staff member, right? It's not just this region or just these teachers of this subject area, right? It's everybody. So I think that we want to make it accessible across the entire division right from the get-go. And every school has an SBIT, a school-based technology person. Every school has a TSPAC. The curriculum is going to be more challenging because where you have fewer students, it's harder to create more electives. Because if you have students taking one thing, they're going to not take something else, right? So I think we're going to have to look at more ways, more creative ways to offer courses, either synchronously with a partner school, or who knows, what's coming in the future. It could be avatar instruction. But I think that is a challenge still, Claire. I think you've named it. And it's not just with AI, it's across the board. I would actually say, if we have time, and I don't know, I actually had this longer than 5:15, so Lisa, wherever, but on my calendar it was longer, but I do wonder how AI affects journalists, right? Because you recently saw the Washington Post laid off a significant number of their journalists, and a lot of companies are saying, it's because of AI, right? They can do certain things. So I think even in your roles, you must have an impact on how that, can help you with your work and so forth. But yeah.
Hello, my name is Amelia Cho, and I'm from McLean High School, and I'm a junior, and I'm the online managing editor of The Highlander. So my question actually revolves exactly around journalism and the usage of AI. So how can we, as editors of a student publication, effectively handle situations when we suspect AI use in student writing, but the writer doesn't acknowledge it? Do you think we should implement strategies or different AI surveillance programs in student journalism issues, or do you think that's unethical, and how do you think we should balance that between student writing and student trust between what we are publishing?
That is a huge question. In other school divisions on the other coast, we actually had something called a student court, where students actually held for certain infractions. There was a student judge elected, like a student leadership officer, and issues like that often were taken to a situation like that. I think it's really challenging, right? Because if Mr. Sethi actually did, not actually, but if he did his own work and brought it to our this is my conference room we're in, and so our senior leadership meet weekly every Wednesday afternoon in here. But if Mr. Sethi brought a report and I suspected that it's not his work, and I call him out on it, but it is his work, then that's forever going to change our relationship, right? Because he's going to think, oh, she doesn't trust me, all that stuff. That's what you're talking about. On the other hand, if I never question anything, he's going to think, oh, I can set anything up, right? Have you heard the term AI slop, right? That's a big problem right now in business, right? They're just producing stuff and sending it in, but it's not really good work. So you've got a dilemma on your hands, Amelia. I think there are some AI programs that you can put things in that they can tell you, well, this is more AI than not. But I don't know how they decide that, because pretty soon I feel like you're going to hand me something, I'm going to put it in the AI thing, and it says, oh, 50%, it's going to send it back to your AI thing. Pretty soon we're never going to talk anymore. It'll just be our little machines. So I don't know if I have a great answer. I think use your instincts. And I always, for me, I would always have that conversation, right? I appreciate you getting this to me on time, which I do appreciate. But there's something is this really real? It doesn't ring true. Like, I think I would always be honest about my concern. But I think, and there's some giveaways. Beth and the team are here. They do a lot of writing for me. But they say there's certain things in the writing that are AI, like bolded things and dashes. There's some things to look for, but you probably already know those. But I would just always have the open conversation, and when in doubt, sometimes having writing assignments that are in the moment, like let's sit down and draft something. And if they can never draft something in the moment, I might ask a few more questions, right? Because when they come in with this perfectly written thing that they can't do when they're with you. So, yeah, anyhow, I think the rest of you might have ideas. Probably this group should meet quarterly or something just to share ideas.
Okay, well, thank you so much.
Yeah, you bet. Thank you. And I loved your mouse article about unions 2 years ago. I still have it, the McLean Highlander. There was a mouse article. I don't know if you remember, it was like a parody.
Yeah, the satire.
Yes, it was very satirical.
I actually also interviewed Mr. Sethi over email a few weeks ago about Emmanuel Beagle's article, if you remember.
Yeah. Oh, that's we exchanged emails.
Nice to meet you too.
Nice to meet you.
Right. I'm Kira Losi, and I am a junior at Marshall High School. You've spoken a lot about the importance of AI literacy to keeping students safe when using AI, and compared it a lot to internet safety training. However, FCPS also includes a lot of built-in technological tools to keep students safe when using the internet, like Lightspeed. Do you envision similar built-in technological tools to help keep students safe as we move towards students using AI in the classroom?
Go ahead, Gautam.
Yeah, so the technology tools on Lightspeed also obviously provide some capabilities on the AI side if we wanted to. I think our bigger question, which we are stepping back and evaluating, is what is the right AI tool, right? We don't imagine that it is, hey, everyone, here's ChatGPT, tomorrow start using it. Not all AI tools are the same. So the right structured tool which allows you to engage meaningfully for learning is not necessarily the basic chatbot that you see in the commercial space. And there are specialized tools, like there are tutors online which are AI assisted. There are tools which will cognitively challenge you as opposed to just give you the answer. And those would be probably the first tools that come out which support from an AI engagement in a student capacity. It's not going to be the generative chatbot tools you see out there, because that's a pretty wild world in there, right? You can't control them. And even ChatGPT doesn't allow for under 18 use. So any of you who have ChatGPT accounts, they actually say in their terms of service, you should be over 18, just as an FYI.
Hello, my name's Natalie. I'm a junior at Madison High School. Thank you for having me. And I was just wondering, as there have been a few recent studies that cite that AI has more downsides than benefits in the classroom, how has, like specifically regarding cognitive development, how has FCPS considered the long-term implications of generative AI on cognitive development?
Yeah, so I mean, there are lots of studies out there right now, right? And I think that unintentional use would be a mistake, right? Because we really have so little time in classrooms, to be honest. I know it seems like all day, but I think that that's part of why we're even engaging in this conversation today, and the board is talking about so much, is how do we strategically use AI so it doesn't become either a distraction or something that takes away from learning, right? Because we want it to enhance, not detract from what's happening in the classroom. So I think that part of that is being very thoughtful about the policy, which we haven't developed yet, and then what we will call guardrails for how it can be used. I think we also have to be on the lookout for when it's being used and we don't even know it's being used, right? Some of our assessments, even the state SOLs, are dynamic. They change with your answers, which is involving, obviously, technology at a really rapid level, if that makes sense. So I think being more aware of it, not fear it, learning how to use it responsibly, and being really intentional about it is going to make sure that we don't, that it doesn't detract from the experience you have. If you're in orchestra class and you're playing your instrument, it's not going to play your cello for you. You still have to be the musician who manages your space, but it could listen to your performance and offer feedback, right? So I think that we just have to figure out how to make sure that our use of AI improves our human ability to do the things that we need to learn to do, to help upskill us as humans, if that makes sense. Yeah. It's not going to mow my lawn. I don't think. Oh, no. Well, okay.
Hi, my name is Beljin, and I'm a freshman from John R. Lewis High School. A lot of rules and regulations are already imposed on students regarding AI use, and teachers have ways to find out whether or not a student used AI, for example, like an English teacher when grading her students' essays. My question is, would certain rules and regulations also be imposed on teachers? And if so, how would they be enforced?
Well, remember when I mentioned that acceptable use agreement that we all have to sign? Those are the rules and guidelines we all have to live within, right? I have to sign them, Mr. Sethi, all of us have to. So we have to abide by those. And there is obviously, we have policies and regulations that all staff have to follow as well. So I think that as this technology evolves, so too our policies and regulations are going to evolve. It's kind of like what the NFL changed how they do kickoffs because they had so many injuries, right? We didn't cancel football, but they did say, well, we're going to start at this yard line and kick it off. And so I think we're going to have to keep adjusting so that that the technology doesn't result in harm, but rather results in improving our ability to learn, not detracting from it.
My name is Yasmin. I'm a junior at Langley High School. And my question is, what grade levels do you think schools should start implementing AI tools, and how do you think it should be used?
Well, I think there has to be a developmental continuum, right? I'm not a big fan of using technology in young ages personally. I tend to believe more in blocks and Lego, right? And using imagination and being outside and those types of things for young children. But there is a developmental continuum that's an appropriate continuum. I think children need to learn about internet and AI and technology safety early. And I do think that I see children sometimes in the airport and other places that are on screens that are in their strollers, right? And that, I have to say, that does kind of give me pause. That's not something I think is a good idea, because then people, I don't know if you've seen it when the parent tries to take it away and then the child's screaming. And I just think that isn't probably a great learning experience for anybody. But I do think that there has to be some kind of smoothing or transition where we learn not just about how to be safe around AI and technology, but how to use it as a tool, to actually harness it as a tool. And I think that continuum, if you want to just put it in bold lines, I think elementary school often is going to use AI more so, or not use it, but need to learn around safety issues. And as students move through secondary, middle, and high, I think then there's more of a likeliness that the continuum will have more use of tools, or responsible use of tools, if that makes sense. So I think you have to learn the safety pieces around it and then learn to use the tools as you get older. Now, having said that, you could also have, I heard today about an elementary teacher that was using an AI lesson, but the teacher was using it, not the students, around a Get to Green activity. So the kids were designing a house that would be an environmentally green house, but they were using crayons and drawing it. And when they were done, they all had their little drawings, which is lovely. And then they decided to create one together, right, on a screen together. And they all threw out ideas like grass on the side, or a waterfall here, or we could have our own fish to fertilize the plants. And so then they created together something that was a model online that is also pretty cool, right? Like, so I think you have to balance those needs. But I think in general, safety first, and then how to use the tools. Yeah, you bet.
Hello, my name is Leona. I am from Lake Braddock Secondary School, and I'm a junior. Thank you so much for having us. When I was doing research for this meeting, I learned about the strategic plan for 2030. And I learned that goal 2 of that plan was to support students' emotional, mental, and behavioral health to support their successful engagement in school. But I also learned that 28% of teens aged 13 to 17 have used AI for casual conversation, emotional support, and things like that, according to the Pew Research Center. And this number is increasing. My question is, how do you think FCPS should address this particular use of AI? And how can they make it more human-based instead of because AI can be very dangerous when used for that kind of purpose.
Yeah. I think that the research is clear that I know you're right. I read the same research article, and also Common Sense Media had an article about the number of students that have used AI for emotional support, or as a maybe even a mental health support vehicle. And even more concerning was 25% of those students had shared private information with this AI, chatbot. And I think that that's part of the AI literacy piece, to make sure that young people know that that's not safe, right? It is not safe to do that. And I think adults, we also have a responsibility. I think one of the ideas, one of our hopes, is that AI will help us do some of our administrative tasks more efficiently, so that we can more meaningfully engage with face-to-face conversation. And adults need to be present. We're on our phones too much, right, as adults. So I think if we can think about how to use AI tools to spend more face time, then it's going to be a very good use of the technology. And I've shared with a couple of groups, my youngest daughter is a physician, an internal medicine doctor. When she does rounds, she now has some little device that takes notes so that it charts for her, so she can spend more time with patients. So in that case, I see it as, wow, that's a powerful tool to give more time for that face-to-face interaction and less time where she has to spend charting when a tool can do that for her. Does that make sense? Yeah, so I think I am concerned about goal 2, and we do need to really be aware of that. Do you all understand that piece of that? Because I do worry, especially if AI Dalton is not honest all the time. Some of the things that we hear in the news about what AI says to people is like really dangerous. So I think it's really important for us to help each other out on that.
But that's great research. For you to be able to find that information, you should be sharing it with other students. I hope you write about it, because we would want them to stay away from character AI and the replicas of the world. They are not good places for kids to be at.
Well, and it's just like if you have a social media feed, all of a sudden you start getting, if you look up something, you start getting a lot of information about that something, and it's an algorithm again. It all goes back to mathematics. So, yeah.
Thank you so much.
Hi, Dr. Reid. Thank you so much for having us. My name is Rania, and I'm a senior at Justice High School. So I think we all know that we've been facing like a plummeting literacy crisis across the nation, and AI actually provides like a really wonderful opportunity to kind of bridge that gap. And FCPS has actually recognized this with its ESOL learning software, which is recently implemented. But it also holds the risk of hindering cognitive development with its lack of hands-on language development skills that students require. And it also provides quick buttons to complete tasks, which just isn't available in real-life conversations. How is FCPS using AI to help battle the national crisis like the one regarding literacy?
So which tool are you referring to? Is that ExactPath or?
I'm not exactly sure of the name, but I know I talked to Miss Anderson this morning, Ricardi Anderson, and she mentioned an ESOL learning software. And we kind of talked about how it just provides like quick buttons to help students learn, but that's not going to be available in real life conversations. And it's usually provided to students that are multilingual.
Yeah, I think that there are a number of things. What we don't want to do is create more challenges, right? So that was part of the drive around AI, is to create learning experiences or tools that increase students' agency around their own learning. So I think that I would want to, and there's a lot of research that says reading on a screen has poorer comprehension outcomes than reading from text. So I think in general, we need to move more to having reading on text, on paper rather than screens, just from our own ability for comprehension. But for multi-language learners, I would have to go back and do some research on that, to be honest with you, to make sure that I know what software we're referring to. Because if the software isn't mirroring what we would say a natural language acquisition, then we really need to, I think, research that before we would implement something like that. I do know that artificial intelligence has been helpful with interpretation and translation for classroom content. So it's also something we've thought about, particularly in content-rich topics that have a lot of academic vocabulary, like mathematics and science, so that students don't come in and get stuck in a math level and stay in language development and then miss all of that content for several years. So I can see really both sides of that. So I appreciate you raising that.
Thank you so much.
You bet.
Hi, I'm Kenley Fairhurst, a junior at Herndon High School, and I was wondering, with the increasing development of data centers, how will FCPS control and address the environmental impacts that AI has?
Those are huge, aren't they? The amount of, do you guys know that? The water, the heat, wow. I have to hope, and hope is not a plan, but I have to hope that that the AI technology is going to evolve so it doesn't continue to require that level of environmental lift, because I don't think it's possible to sustain it. Honestly, if you start extrapolating the environmental impact, it's significant. So I think that's part of our responsible conversation around AI. And for whatever reason, we've become ground zero for data centers, right? In the Northern Virginia area, maybe not our county, but our area, which that's a huge discussion right now. In fact, I'm told our Commonwealth has given tax breaks to the data centers to build here equivalent to $1.6 billion annually, if that's a real number. Some of you are nodding, but that's what I've been told. And I'm just like, think about what that could do for education. If that money, right? So anyhow, I think it's a great question. I think we're going to have to explore what we can do to counter that, because a lot of the information that's flowing through our area of the country is actually supporting many other parts of the country.
Yeah. Thank you.
It's a great question. Maybe we should ask AI what to do about it. Okay. So
Hi.
Probably have.
My name's Emily Fredlake. I'm a sophomore from Hayfield Secondary School. My question is similar to Kenley's, but I know in past years, FCPS has had a lot of different environmental initiatives, and obviously it is known that AI requires massive amounts of energy and water to function. What ways and what measures can FCPS take to maintain these environmental priorities while still incorporating AI into our education?
Well, I think first being aware is number one. So I really appreciate that we're in the room with journalists who can write about that, right? I don't know how often you've written about the environmental impact of AI within, what our county could do. I think one thing we could think about is actually calculating what our impact would be, right? If we actually had 180,000 students on AI for an hour, 3 times a week, what would the load be environmentally? So it'd be interesting to calculate that. And then have a conversation about what is the trade-off, right? The cost benefit. So if any of you have an interest in that, I think it'd be an interesting project, honestly, and to graph that. Like, what would a division this size with 40,000 staff and 180,000 students, what is our impact if we used AI for this amount of time? And would we want to make a commitment to minimize that because of that? So let's pull some data together and see what that would look like, to be honest with you. I would be really interested in that. Or have we pulled that yet?
No, I mean, the research on it keeps developing, and the models, the AI models actually keep changing, right? They used to consume a lot more, then they run faster now, it's cheaper, but then they do more things. So it's still a moving target. Yesterday I was at a AI convening where some of the state delegates were there and talking about fusion energy, which is green energy perspective, and they were thinking of how Virginia can lead in that work. So instead of relying on the carbon footprint of current energy going to the data centers, we can start transitioning to the fusion energy. There were some really interesting, hopeful comments in that discussion. So people are thinking about it. But if you do research, it'll be great if you can do research on, and there's a lot of AI too, or help from your librarians to get actual research papers on what is the current cost and basis of AI usage, and what is the impact on electricity and water. Those would be the 2 big factors.
I do think, and it's fresh water, so the water has to be desalinated, I think.
Some circulation, some data centers run it in different ways where they can keep running the same water over and over, so they don't have to go get it from fresh. But
what's fascinating about this technology is it's moving so rapidly. Yeah. So rapidly. So we're just going to have to stay with it. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Nicole Hernandez from Falls Church High School, and I'm wondering how our previous attempts to implement AI tools in FCPS, and how will they impact the new policies implemented?
Well, so far, we really have only talked in classrooms about AI literacy or safe use, safe and ethical use. We have some schools that are lighthouse schools that have done a little more exploration into the tools as sort of a pilot, but we haven't really brought AI tools in the classroom to scale across the county yet. We're waiting until we have that board policy completed to roll out what we would consider county-wide work around AI tool use, either in a classroom or all of the literacy modules. So I think we're really hoping to have that policy done soon while we continue to learn more about the tools. So thank you. Yeah.
Hi, Dr. Reid. I'm David Salvatore. I'm a junior at Fairfax High School. How can FCPS reduce reliance on superficial achievement? I think more of AI is like more of the curriculum, where I feel like students are just more on the curriculum trying to, especially in like high school or like upper programs, where it's like where grades are such a huge impact on college admissions and other things like that. So how can we encourage authentic learning, especially in like upper schools, like to make sure that students are like learning more authentically in regards to like making sure that they're not doing an assignment with AI that's gonna improve their grade, like for a summative assessment or a formative assessment?
Well, some content areas you can't do that, right? Like if you're an auto mechanics, the car either works or it doesn't. So anything that's a performance base, I think, requires you to actually authentically engage. Theater, music, the arts, CTE, world language. Ironically, it's the academic, right? The AP Physics, AP Calc BC, and so forth. Having said that, or AP Lit or Lang and IB courses, I think that, again, the recognition that these tools should help us develop our human skills will enable us to do more authentic work. And I think that, AI, even in the workplace with the AI slop that we often talk about, is going to be something I think we recognize even more quickly. I think about some of the radio stations around the country now where AI actually runs the station, like during the graveyard shifts where they have actually online, where they don't have a human sometimes. I don't think that's the future where we're headed in all areas, but I think to learn those stories, to know that research, and to be able to have real conversations about what does authentic work even look like is going to be really important. But it ultimately is going to come down to the individual. And I know this sounds hard sometimes, but you each decide how much you're going to put into what you're doing on a daily basis, right? Whether it's a performance, a class, an assignment, a test, whatever, you've decided, you make a decision how much you're going to invest your time and energy into it. And I think if you really are interested in that learning, you're going to invest more time. And AI, again, we're going to have to learn how to use it wisely.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Valeria Aquino, and I'm a sophomore at Addison High School. So you've previously mentioned that you would use AI so that you can have more meaningful face-to-face with your coworkers. So would you implement AI for school counselors or school psychiatrists so that way they can have more meaningful face-to-face with their students?
Well, right now, all our staff have access to the ChatGPT tools. And so I think that there are a lot of reports we ask people to write. There's just a lot of reporting and paperwork that if we can make that a little bit easier in some way or more efficient, then people might have more time to be freed up to work with students directly, right? So I think that's one of our hopes, is to think about what are the administrative tasks, Mr. Sethi put the operational things that AI can help us be better at so that we can spend more time with students, right? So I think that's one of our hopes. Right now, nothing is mandated in that sense. These are tools that are available, and training right now is available. Once we have a policy, to go back to Claire's point, once we have a policy in place and we're clear about these are the sort of the lines in the sand, if you will, about AI in Fairfax County, then we'll need to roll out professional development and training for all staff so that we don't have pockets of some people understand it better or use it better than others, but that it's a tool available for everybody that we wouldn't want to implement it if it's not going to improve the educational experience for our students.
But to very specifically do like counselors, those are very unique use cases, right? That's not a general office work kind of a use case, or school psychologist. That may not be the use case where AI may be applicable. But office work, like we do, there's a lot of office work, that may be a place where it starts with.
Thank you so much.
Right. And particularly in those areas like counseling and social work, psychologists, that data is very sensitive, right? Very private. So we would want to make sure that there are very strong safeguards around all of your data. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
My name is Aria, and I'm here with Chantilly High School newspaper, The Purple Tide. And my question is, even without specific data points specifically about FCPS, it's relatively well established that AI and the data centers that fund them are energy intensive, and additionally, there are ethical and data privacy concerns with AI and the related companies. So since these concerns will likely take years to address, how does FCPS plan to, in the meantime, consider these concerns when taking account how much the extent to which AI is used in these and encouraged in these classrooms and by students as a county as large as influential as ours?
Right, and we are large, right? We're the 9th largest school division in the country, and by enrollment, larger than 11 states. So we have a lot to say, right? And we want to get it right because the rest of the country watches what you all are doing, right? Fairfax County Public School students are, I think, the premier students in our country because we have the best educators, right? And because you have amazing creative, critical thinking skills. So I think that when we think about the upside downside of what you're suggesting, I think that we just have to stay focused on what's possible in a good and right use. We have to be thoughtful about the environmental impact. And as Mr. Sethi said, that just seems to be ebbing and flowing. But I like the idea of us doing some research. If the impact of our use is X, and what is the cost benefit, right? Is the cost worth the benefit? Maybe is a better question. I think there's still a lot to learn on that, to be honest with you. But fair question. And this is your generation that's going to have to wrestle with it, right? Because you not only are going to see the power of this tool, but also the impact of the tool on the environment that is coming. I think I will, before Alison shares, one of the things I learned from the Navajo, an indigenous tribe, is when they make decisions with a filter of what will be best for those 7 generations from now. And I wonder if we made decisions with that in mind, would we even go down this path, right? About what we value. Anyhow, Alison.
Hi, I'm Alison, junior at Centerville High School, and my question is, what are the implications of new AI tech on the curriculum of technology and computer courses that FCPS already offers, like specifically coding and like web development classes, especially now that there are entire websites that you can go and put a concept in or apps and the AI will make an app for you or make a website for you?
So that's a big question, isn't it? We've already learned that a lot of the coding jobs right now are being done more efficiently with AI, right? So the computer science jobs, I think we just saw a recent thing with Fortune 500 companies would rather hire somebody, a new employee who has AI in their background or AI skills than someone with a computer science degree. So I think that we have to continue to think about our curriculum. Our curriculum prepares students for either college, university, or work. And if coding is not, I think we need to understand what coding is, right? The mathematics, the patterns, the sense making, logic, of course. But I think our courses are going to be changing too. They're going to need to evolve because the mechanics of it almost can be done better with some forms of AI. We saw that with the stock exchange. I don't know how many of you are interested in business as a career, but the traders on the stock exchange used to be people that did it with cards, and it used to be done manually. And now, well over 90% is all done by machine, done by AI. So fundamentally, the workplace is changing, and to be ready for this new workplace, you're going to have to understand these tools and how to use them to improve your human skills. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Mahadevi Kong, and I'm from Bryan High School. And I would like to ask a question about this. Like, AI is some sort of good and bad, but what would you do to stop like the next generation to think that the bad AI is the good AI instead of the good AI?
Oh, so how to keep the wolf looking like a wolf and not a wolf in sheep's wool? The question is, how do you make good AI not, the question is not how to make the bad AI not look like good AI. Well, I think we have to be discerning consumers of technology. And so I think that we probably all get caught sometimes thinking something's real or something's good, but I think we just have to stay attentive to hallucinations, and if it doesn't look right or sound right, it may not be right. Even with calculators, I am so surprised when people do whatever they do on the calculator, write down the answer, and it's so far off. And I'm like, well, that's what it said. And I said, don't you stop and think? Because that's not, it doesn't even make sense, right? Like you've added too many zeros or whatever. So I just think we have to be critical consumers and, critical thinkers, and I think we'll be fine. Thank you. All right, Zoe.
Hi, yes. My name is Zoe Laguerre. I'm a senior at Annandale High School. So you talked a little bit about how the AI policy has not yet been developed, but you are in the works. I saw the draft for that. And within that draft, you state that the AI policies will be reviewed every 2 years. So when considering the speed at which AI is developing, how is your policy development processes changing to consider that, while also considering how, but also taking into account student viewpoints, concerns, and questions, kind of in more formal surveying methods like focus groups and things?
That's a great question. By the way, do the rest of you know Zoe? Zoe is the Virginia Student Journalist of the Year this year. You got that award, right? Am I right? And you're the editor of the Annandale A-Blast. So, wow, right? Top in Virginia. So, congratulations, Zoe. I will say that a policy should be at a higher level. So, it should be like a value statement, like we want to use AI we want to responsibly use AI to, improve our human skills or something like that. The regulation that sits under the policy is something that can change at any time. So I think we want to review the big idea we have every 2 years, but the regulation, with this committee I mentioned, we can adjust the regulation this afternoon if we feel like there's something in it that isn't working for us. So I think we try to balance the long-term review with the more real-time adjustment if we have to do a real-time adjustment. For example, a regulation is where fees for meals sit, or things that can be changed like very quickly. So, but it's a great question.
Yeah, and how does student viewpoints fit into that?
Well, I think that the SAC group, for example, is anybody on SAC? Probably not, the Superintendent Advisory Committee, but they often have a study group on different topics. I think AI would be a great one for next year, to be honest, because then they present their plans to me after they study those. We also had a student summit with a group on AI, a group of journalists, and I think we need student voice on the committee I was talking about we're developing. So, all right, well, thank you, journalists. I hope you write on this, and I just want to thank you for how thoughtful your questions are and how you're thinking. I can hear the gears turning. I can see it. Anyhow, I wish you all the best, and thank you for your time this afternoon.